Senator Milne.
Thank you, Mr President. My question without notice is to the Minister representing the Minister for the Environment, Minister Cormann. Can the Minister confirm Minister Hunt's remarks that the Emission Reduction Fund, central to direct action, will now be called the Carbon Farming Initiative Amendment Bill, and that $1.9 billion of the $2.5 billion will be allocated to soil carbon, new tree plantings and carbon in landscape projects? If so, can the Minister tell us what price per tonne the government has calculated would be paid so that these projects would be viable?
Minister representing the Minister for Environment, Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr President. What I can confirm is that we will be pursuing initiatives through the Emissions Reduction Fund, through our direct action policy, which will actually make a difference to emissions in Australia and in the world. We are pursuing a policy that will actually reduce emissions in Australia in a way that helps achieve a reduction in emissions in the world, unlike the alternative policy, which is the Labor Green carbon tax, which just shifts emissions to other parts of the world. As your policy, the carbon tax policy, makes overseas emitters more competitive than businesses here in Australia who, for the same level of economic output, would be able to achieve particular products and deliver particular products and services in a way that is less emissions intensive. So, our policy in relation to the Emissions Reduction Fund is there for all to see. It is very clear. It is a policy that is consistent with the approach taken by countries around the world. It is very mainstream and it is outcomes focused. Unlike the approach taken by the previous government, which just pushes up the cost of electricity, pushes up the cost of living, pushes up the cost of doing business, makes us less competitive internationally, puts jobs at risk, and of course, according to the previous government's own modelling, was leading to reductions in real income growth as a direct result of the Labor Green carbon tax policy. Our policy is not going to do any of that. Our policy is going to help achieve genuine reductions in emissions in a way that is economically responsible and sustainable.
Senator Milne.
Thank you, Mr President. I thank the Minister for his answer, and I ask, is Minister Hunt freelancing again? Is this the first you've heard of the fact that the Emission Reduction Fund is now to be called the Carbon Farming Initiative Amendment Bill? And can you confirm that if that is the case, that $1.9 billion of the $2.5 is going on tree plantings, etc., that there will be no impact on greenhouse gas emissions from power stations and big polluters, and they'll be able to permit for nothing?
The Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr President. There is so much wrong with the assertions underpinning the questions that have been put by Senator Milne that it is very hard to come up with a sensible answer. But let me attempt to provide a sensible answer to what is not a very sensible question, and that is that we are pursuing a policy which seeks to reduce emissions in a way that is economically responsible, that doesn't detract from economic growth opportunities in the future, that doesn't hurt the Australian economy for no purpose. We are seeking to reduce emissions by competitively tendering the lowest cost opportunity to achieve the highest impact emissions reduction through a proper competitive market-based system. Unlike the previous government, who doesn't understand about markets, unlike the previous Labor Green government, which thinks that introducing a new tax is somehow a market-based mechanism, on this side of the parliament we understand that you don't willfully hurt your economy, you don't willfully impose
time has expired for answering the question. Senator Milne.
Thank you, Mr President, and I'll try for a third time. What is the price you've calculated you're going to pay for carbon farming initiative permits? And secondly, is the changing of the rule for permanently storing carbon in the land from 100 years down to 25 years designed to encourage managed investment schemes and plantation forestry, contrary to the existing scheme?
The Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr President. And the quality of the question sadly hasn't improved, so I will continue to do my best in providing a sensible answer. But the fundamental problem with the question that's been asked is that the Greens clearly do not understand about markets. The Greens clearly do not understand about markets. And the price under our scheme that you are asking for, that you are asking after, is going to be set by the market. through a competitive system. Our system is the ultimate market-based mechanism to reduce emissions, through a proper competitive tendering process. Instead of imposing a big new tax on everyone, instead of imposing a tax that pushes up the cost of electricity, pushes up the cost of gas, pushes up the cost of living, pushes up the cost of doing business, makes it harder for Australian businesses to be successful, costs jobs. Instead of all of that, we are pursuing a policy that helps reduce emissions in a way that doesn't detract from economic growth, and we make no apologies for it.